The General Roberts Hotel Newcastle Falcons have had a massive off-season with so many new signings and a lot of the players from last season, especially the Women's Championship team, returning. And let's just get straight into it. After a season in the WNBL, another season in WNBL, Nicole Munger has returned triumphantly to Newcastle. This will be her fourth season playing up in the beautiful Hunter, and boy, did she have a massive season, almost the perfect season last season, averaging 24 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, a 40% three-point shooting. Oh, do we mention she was the MVP as well as Star 5 and Finals MVP? Oh, and won the championship as well. So Nicole Munger really did it all, almost single-handedly lifting Newcastle to the championship. And wow, what a play, what a dynamic player. Really just does it all for the Newcastle Falcons. We've talked about it plenty of times on this channel. Really a multifaceted player. Had a very solid season with the UC Capitals in the WNBL, so no doubt would be bigger, better and badder than ever. So it's a scary prospect for the league as she looks to go 3-time MVP in 2025. We'll see if it's possible. And joining Nicole Munger is one of her UC Capital teammates, Meg Jefferson, one of the biggest signings, at least in the women's side, for the Newcastle Falcons this season. Meg Jefferson averaged 12 and 5 last season, playing for the Hills Hornets, previously played for the Penrith Panthers, but is a player with a huge upside, a very multi-skilled big, with great footwork in the paint, can post up and definitely finish out of the pick and roll situation. Of course, Meg Jefferson's skill and talent was acknowledged by a WNBL contract this season with the UC Capitals. So Meg Jefferson, I think, will replace that Isla Jufferman's role as the center to go alongside Nicole Munger, but that is a very scary front court. Arguably one of the most talented front courts in NBL1 East women's competition. And yeah, we're big fans of Meg Jefferson, and it's going to be interesting to see what she can do in the Newcastle system. We saw Isla Jufferman's really star at center with them, so maybe that system will suit Meg Jefferson better, with a very solid season with Hills, but a few ups and downs. Moving over to the men's side, there's been a huge signing. EJ Stevens is joining the Newcastle Falcons for a season, and could he be the missing piece that the Falcons have been looking for in their import signings over the last few seasons? Of course, they had Anthony Gaines, they had Jai Smith, who are both quite solid players to fill in that almost four spot for the Newcastle Falcons. But got a feeling EJ Stevens is exactly the right fit they're looking for. I think more of a shooter than Gaines or Smith ever was. Of course, was out of Minnesota University, as well as playing at Lafayette University alongside Leo O'Boyle and Myles Cherry. So there's the connection there. So he's already going to have chemistry with two of Newcastle's biggest guns, but that play style, more of a shooter, can definitely attack with the dribble as well, but will space the floor out, because we know Newcastle's a very big, heavy team, so they definitely need shooters out there, and EJ Stevens might just be that missing ingredient. Of course, we mentioned Leo Boyle just before. Leo Boyle, what a season he had to finish out with the Newcastle Falcons last year. 17 points, 6 rebounds, and had some huge games. Huge game against Albury where he put up 30 points with that Larry Bird-esque slingshot. He's got a smooth jump shot, Leo Boyle. You got a feeling he's going to be playing the 3 or the 4 this season. And we can't wait to see what he does with a full season under his belt. Definitely a scoring threat, and has a big body, so he can really get into the rack and cause some trouble in the paint as well. Speaking of big bodies, the dynamic front court for the Newcastle Falcons, they've been doing it for years. Myles Cherry and Ryan Beisty are back in the Hunter, and boy, what a front court this is. Arguably the best front court in NBL1 East, especially considering their chemistry. Myles Cherry averaged 15 points and 10 rebounds last season. A real old school big, can get down in the paint, can give you one of those smooth jump hooks, or just bully his way in, double team, triple teamed. He can still fight his way through contact. Of course, Myles Cherry, maybe not the tallest big you'll see out there, but boy, he is strong and experienced as well. So really the heart and soul of that Newcastle program to go along with Ryan Beisty, who is just an elite player. He can do it all, ladies and gentlemen. And I think an underrated part of Ryan Beisty's game is his playmaking. So he can play out on the perimeter. Of course, he's got that three-point shot on lock, but definitely can set his teammates up. We saw plenty of times last season him, feeding Myles Cherry on the post-ups or out of the pick-and-roll situation. So that's why that combination works really well with Myles Cherry and Ryan Beisty, is they don't get in each other's way, because Beisty can pop out to the three-point line, he can play make, but also get down into the paint and cause some trouble there as well. So having Myles Cherry, Ryan Beisty back to go along with Leo Boyle, EJ Stevens, and Goodwin at the point guard, that's a very, very strong starting lineup. But moving back to the women's side, a new signing, Rio Yamazaki. Now, a very intriguing prospect Newcastle has brought in here. Of course, they lacked a bit of guard depth last season. It'd be interesting to see if Oni Nichols is back, but I think that's a little doubtful. But with Rio Yamazaki suiting up for the Newcastle Falcons, they have a very multi-talented guard here. Just going through her college stats, played college for Olds College in Canada, as well as Acadia University. For Olds, she averaged 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. So filling up the stat sheet in all regards. Just looking at her highlights, a very crafty finisher with a soft touch, but is very strong for a guard. You can see Rio Yamazaki has put in her time in the weight room. Can also shoot threes to space the floor out for the Newcastle Falcons. There's one thing they maybe struggled with a little bit last season, their three-point shooting, but they more than made up for it with their ability to bully teams going downhill and in the paint. But also with Rio Yamazaki, one more thing that did stand out, which I think will help Newcastle Falcons offense work really well, is a lot of great off-ball movement, off-ball cuts. I've seen a lot in her highlights from college, so that'll be very useful playing off the playmakers they have, like Nicole Munger, is a very unselfish distributor. So if Rio Yamazaki can space the floor with her shooting and some well-timed cuts, I think she'll fit in really well and be able to make a big impact with this Falcons team. So we have another player from that Canberra connection. Now, in this photo, we have Sophie Brennan, who hasn't been announced as a signing, but I'm sure will be back in newer colours this year. Of course, we're talking about Claudea Waihape Andrews. Now, she is going to be joining the Falcons from Canberra. Previously played for the Canberra Nationals, but more recently was playing for the UC Caps as a development player in the WNBL. It was previously the Defensive Player of the Year in the Waratah Women's Division, so is a very solid player, especially defensively. Will get down and do the dirty work, set screens, and should be a very good utility player to have in the front court. We've seen her play for the Nationals a couple times, and was a great teammate to have. Again, good on the rebounding, good in the paint, and can also stretch out for three every now and then. So a great addition for the Falcons. Well, we mentioned the championship team. We have one of the key parts of that championship team returning. It's Kate Kigham. We always say it, to defend the paint, Kate Kigham is the heart and soul of the Newcastle Falcons side. And you can tell, if you're sitting courtside, you'll hear Kate Kigham is very vocal out there, organises the side, but isn't one of those players who's looking to hog the ball and take over games. She'll fit in when needed, and you really need those kind of glue players in every championship team. But of course, is a great shooter. So really complements the two bigs they've got with Jefferson and Munger. Kingham's going to be able to space the floor. Can play make a bit as well, and is a very, very trustworthy on-ball defender. So Kate Kigham, good to have her back for that continuity season after season. Another champion returning is Hannah Chicken, who's a player who particularly impressed us last season. Moving out to the national championship finals on the Sunshine Coast, Hannah Chicken had a much bigger role with Isla Jufferman's already off at college, and she stepped up big time. Hannah Chicken is a elite defender down in the paint, swatting shots left, right, and center, and really moves her body well and uses that length to put shots off and get blocks as well. So Hannah Chicken, I think, is going to be someone who takes it to the next level this season. I think she would be able to play alongside Meg Jefferson, if not backing her up off the bench. But I reckon definitely a player to keep an eye out for. Looking at the depth on the men's side now, Kobe Shannon has returned for his second season with the Newcastle Falcons. I think I saw him trialing for a few other teams, but ended up returning to the Falcons, which I think is a great move. We'll be able to pick up where he left off and had a very, very solid season last year. 10 points per game. Kobe Shannon, a very dynamic and athletic player. Can play the 3 or the 4 spot and throw down some massive dunks. Of course, while commentating him in UBL for UTS, he showed that he can lead a team in scoring. And doesn't need a whole lot of touches to do it. He's a very efficient scorer, especially attacking off the wings, cutting. There's no player who's going to have the ball glued to his hands, Kobe Shannon. So whether he's starting or coming off the bench this year for the Newcastle Falcons, Kobe Shannon's another one of those young talents you really got to keep an eye out for. And I think going to provide some serious depth for this Newcastle side because he can cover a fair few positions. So coming off the bench or starting, I think he'll complement the other Newcastle Falcons players really well. A player that I think is maybe flying a little under the radar. His 3rd season in NBL1 with the Falcons, it's Matur Maluach. And I don't know if you noticed, ladies and gentlemen, he averaged 14 points per game last season, but we crunched the numbers as well. He had 14 games with 15 or more points, several 20-point games, 19-point games, and can really heat up in a hurry. Matur Maluach, again, I think has flown a bit under the radar. Falcons pun totally intended in his few seasons in NBL1, but wouldn't be surprised eventually to see him in the starting lineup in that 2 or 3 spot. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of competition on the wings finally for the Newcastle Falcons. And I think Matur Maluach, that heat up in a hurry kind of scorer, he's averaging 14 points per game last season. Who knows? Maybe give him the opportunity. He can average 20 points per game. It's all going to be about consistency for Maluach. I think a player that's going to really tie in the whole starting lineup is one of our favourite players. It's Jaidyn Goodwin. Now, player who might not be the flashiest, but he's the point guard that every team needs extremely solidly defensively. In fact, won the Newcastle Falcons Men's Defensive Player of the Year award last season and also led the team in assists. So Jaidyn Goodwin, a very unselfish point guard. We'll get in there, we'll do the dirty work, because we all know the Falcons, just looking at this lineup, they don't need any more scoring. They've really got that covered. So a point guard that can set the team up and defend well, I think is very useful. Of course, Jaidyn Goodwin, can get downhill when needed on the pick and roll situation. It's pretty handy with the 3-point shot as well. So a real jack of all trades kind of point guard, but you definitely need one of them. So I think Jaidyn Goodwin, perfect fit for this Newcastle Falcons team. And another very talented wing who's going to be, causing a little bit of competition for the starters. You got a feeling Alex Clinton is ready to take the next step this season. Of course, had a very decorated youth league career and has now stepped up to NBL1, was in the squad last year as well. But Alex Clinton, really good off the dribble, a very creative player with a silky smooth jump shot. He's been starting in one of the preseason games they had against Tamworth and really shone according to reports in that game. So Alex Clinton back for another season to provide that depth and that extra talent for the Newcastle Falcons, and the men's squad's looking very well rounded.